Tech Millionare only dated rich nurses until his new secretary walked into his office and stole his. For a moment, he thought she might let him. Her lips parted slightly, her breathing quickened. Kyle took a step closer, and she didn't back away. Have you ever bent your own rules for someone special? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Kyle Forster had 3 rules for dating: rich, educated, and no drama. The 34-year-old tech billionaire never broke them. Until her. She walked into his San Francisco office on a Tuesday morning, clutching a worn purse like her life depended on it. Dark skin glowing under the harsh corporate lights. Nervous fingers smoothing down a discount store blazer that somehow made her look more beautiful than any designer outfit he'd seen. Mr. Forster? Her voice was soft, southern. I'm Tessa Williams. The temp agency sent me. Kyle looked up from his MacBook. This wasn't supposed to happen. His assistant always hired from elite staffing firms. Women who drove BMWs and carried Louis Vuitton bags. Women who wouldn't be impressed by his wealth because they had their own. But here she stood, poor, clearly out of place, and absolutely gorgeous. There's been a mistake, he said, not taking his eyes off her. Tessa's shoulders sagged. Please, sir, I really need this job. My mother's in the hospital, and I can't afford to lose another position. Something twisted in Kyle's chest. He made $1 billion helping hospitals find staff, but this woman couldn't even afford her mother's medical bills. Sit down, he heard himself say. She perched on the edge of the leather chair like she might run at any moment. Kyle watched her scan his corner office. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, the awards lining the walls, the framed photo of him shaking hands with tech giants. Tell me about yourself, Kyle said. I have an associate's degree from a community college in Georgia. I've worked reception, data entry, filing. I'm good with computers, and I don't cause trouble. Don't cause trouble. If only she knew what kind of trouble she was already causing just by sitting there. The position pays $1,500 a week, Kyle said, watching her eyes widen. Can you handle that? Tessa's hand flew to her mouth. $1,500? That's more than I made in a month at my last job. Kyle felt something dangerous stirring in his chest. When was the last time someone had been genuinely grateful for anything he offered? His usual dates expected expensive dinners and weekend trips to Napa like they were basic necessities. We'll start with a 2-week trial, he said. If it works out, we'll discuss something permanent. She stood up so fast, she nearly knocked over her purse. Thank you, Mr. Forster. You won't regret this, I promise. As she walked toward the door, Kyle called out, Tessa. She turned back, hope written all over her face. Welcome to the team. After she left, Kyle stared out his window at the city below. He'd just broken his most important rule, but something about Tessa Williams made him want to break a few more. What do you think about Kyle's decision? Have you ever bent your own rules for someone special? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button if you're curious what happens next. His phone buzzed. A text from his business partner. The Jakarta deal closes Friday. Don't mess this up. Kyle smiled. He was about to mess up everything. 3 days later, Kyle couldn't concentrate on anything except the woman organizing his files. Tessa moved through his office like she belonged there, turning his chaotic desk into something that actually made sense. She'd memorized his coffee order, learned his schedule, and somehow managed to make his most difficult client smile over the phone. But it was the little things that got to him. The way she bit her lip when she concentrated. How she hummed old R&B songs while she worked. The fact that she brought lunch from home in a brown paper bag instead of ordering from the expensive restaurants downstairs. Mr. Forrester? She appeared in his doorway holding a stack of contracts. These need your signature before 5. Kyle looked up from his laptop. She'd changed into a different blazer today. Navy blue, still from a discount store, but hugged her curves in a way that made his mouth go dry. Just Kyle is fine, he said. We're not that formal around here. A smile tugged at her lips. My mama would roll over in her grave if she heard me calling a billionaire by his first name. Your mother's still alive. You said she was in the hospital. Tessa's face changed instantly. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something guarded and cold. It's just an expression, she said quietly. Kyle watched her retreat behind her professional mask. Every time he tried to get closer, she pulled away. It was driving him crazy. Tessa, wait. He stood up, moving around his desk. I didn't mean to pry. She was standing by the window now, looking out at the bay. She's got kidney disease. Been on dialysis for 2 years. The doctors say she needs a transplant, but she shrugged. Insurance doesn't cover everything. Kyle felt something crack open in his chest. How much do you need? I can't ask you for money. Her voice was sharp. That's not why I told you. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering help. She turned to face him, and for the first time since she'd walked into his office, she looked angry. You think because I'm poor, I'm some kind of charity case? That I told you about my mother so you'd feel sorry for me? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Kyle? The way she said his name made heat shoot straight through him. They were standing close now, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something sweet and cheap that probably came from a drugstore. It was more intoxicating than any designer fragrance he'd ever encountered. I meant that I care about what happens to you, he said. Something shifted in her eyes. You don't even know me. Then let me. For a moment, he thought she might let him. Her lips parted slightly, her breathing quickened. Kyle took a step closer, and she didn't back away. Then her phone rang. Tessa blinked, the spell broken. She grabbed her phone from her purse. Hello? What? When? Her face went white. I'll be right there. She hung up and looked at Kyle with panic in her eyes. I have to go. My mother, something's wrong. Ever had a moment interrupted by bad news? Tell us about it in the comments. And smash that subscribe button because this story is just getting started. Kyle didn't hesitate. I'm driving you. You don't have to. Tessa. His voice was firm. I'm driving you. 20 minutes later, they were speeding through San Francisco traffic in Kyle's black Tesla. Tessa sat in the passenger seat, her hands clenched in her lap, staring straight ahead. She collapsed at home, she said suddenly. The neighbor found her. Kyle reached over and covered her hand with his. Her skin was soft, warm. She didn't pull away. She's going to be okay, he said. You don't know that. No, but I know you're strong enough to handle whatever happens. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Why are you doing this? Because I can't stop thinking about you. Because you make me want to be a better man. Because when you smile, it feels like sunshine after a storm. Because it's the right thing to do, he said instead. At the hospital, Kyle watched Tessa transform. Gone was the shy temp secretary. In her place stood a fierce daughter, demanding answers from doctors, fighting for her mother's care, refusing to be brushed aside. Mrs. Williams was unconscious, hooked up to machines that beeped steadily in the small room. She looked fragile, older than Kyle had expected. She raised me by herself, Tessa said, standing beside the bed. Worked 3 jobs to put me through school. Never complained, never asked for help. Kyle stood behind her, close enough to catch her if she fell. She did a good job. Did she? Tessa's voice cracked. Look where I ended up. 26 years old, broke, working temp jobs, and I can't even afford to save her life. Kyle turned her around to face him. Her eyes were bright, with unshed tears. You're working 2 jobs to pay for her care. You moved across the country for a better opportunity. You're fighting for her every single day. If that's not love, I don't know what is. A tear slipped down her cheek. Kyle wiped it away with his thumb, his hand lingering on her face. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. They were alone in the hallway now, the hospital quiet around them. Kyle pulled her closer, and this time she didn't resist. She melted against his chest, her hands fisting in his shirt. He could feel her heart beating against his ribs, could smell her hair, feel her breath on his neck. Every rational thought in his head was screaming at him to step back, to maintain professional boundaries. Instead, he tilted her chin up. Tessa. She looked up at him with those dark eyes, vulnerable and trusting, and so beautiful it made his chest ache. Kyle, Mr. Williams? A doctor appeared around the corner. Your mother is awake. The spell broke. Tessa stepped back, smoothing down her hair, trying to compose herself. But as they walked back to the room, Kyle caught her looking at him, and the heat in her eyes told him everything he needed to know. Have you ever felt an instant connection with someone? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to like this video if you're invested in Kyle and Tessa's story. Mrs. Williams' eyes opened slowly, focusing on her daughter's face. "Baby girl," she whispered, her voice weak but clear. "You came." "Of course I came, Mama." Tessa gripped her mother's hand. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck." Mrs. Williams tried to smile, then noticed Kyle standing in the corner. "Who's your friend?" Kyle stepped forward. "I'm Kyle Forrester, ma'am. Tessa works for me." Mrs. Williams studied him with sharp eyes that reminded Kyle exactly where Tessa got her intelligence. "Kyle Forrester, that name sounds familiar. He's the one who created the hospital staffing app," Tessa said quickly. "You know, the one that helped Atlanta General find those nurses last year." "Ah." Mrs. Williams nodded slowly. "You're the billionaire." Kyle felt heat creep up his neck. "I prefer entrepreneur." "Same thing." Mrs. Williams squeezed her daughter's hand. "Baby, why don't you go get me some ice chips? I need to talk to Mr. Billionaire here." Tessa looked between them nervously. "Mama." "Go on. He'll be fine." After Tessa left, Mrs. Williams fixed Kyle with a stare that could cut glass. "My daughter is a good girl," she said. "Smart, hardworking, honest. She's been through enough pain in her life." "I understand." "Do you?" Mrs. Williams struggled to sit up higher. "Because rich men like you, they see girls like my Tessa as entertainment. Something fun to play with until they get bored." Kyle felt like he'd been slapped. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" "Because I've seen that look in your eyes when you watch her. I know what you're thinking." Kyle was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was honest. "I think your daughter is the most remarkable woman I've ever met. And yes, I'm attracted to her. But this isn't a game to me." "Good." Mrs. Williams relaxed slightly. "Because if you hurt her, I'll find a way to make you pay. Money or no money." Kyle almost smiled. "I believe you would." "Damn right I would." Tessa returned with iced chips, looking between them suspiciously. "Everything okay in here?" "Just fine, baby girl." Mrs. Williams winked at Kyle. "Mr. Forrester and I were just getting acquainted." Later, as they drove back to the office, Tessa was quiet. "What did she say to you?" she finally asked. "She loves you. Wants to protect you." "From you?" Kyle glanced at her. "From men like me." "And what kind of man are you, Kyle?" The question hung in the air between them. Kyle pulled into the parking garage beneath his building and turned off the engine. "The kind who usually gets what he wants," he said honestly. "And what do you want?" Kyle turned to face her fully. In the dim light of the garage, she looked young and vulnerable and absolutely gorgeous. "You," he said simply. Tessa's breath caught. "Kyle, I know all the reasons this is a bad idea. I know I'm your boss. I know we're from different worlds. I know you need this job. Then why? Because I can't stop thinking about you. Because you make me want to be better than I am." The tension is building. What do you think Tessa should do? Team Kyle or Team Run? Let us know in the comments and hit that notification bell. Tessa stared at him for a long moment. Then, without warning, she leaned across the console and kissed him. It was supposed to be soft, tentative, a test. But the moment their lips touched, something ignited. Kyle's hand tangled in her hair, pulling her closer. She tasted like coffee and something sweet, and he couldn't get enough. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "We shouldn't have done that," Tessa whispered, but she didn't move away. "Probably not," Kyle agreed, his thumb tracing her bottom lip. "This is crazy. You're my boss. You're a billionaire. I am nobody." "You're not nobody." Kyle's voice was fierce. "Don't ever say that again." "Kyle." She closed her eyes. "This can't go anywhere. You know that, right? We're too different." "Are we?" He cupped her face in his hands. "Because right now, in this moment, the only difference I see is that I'm falling for you and you're trying to run away." "I'm not running away." "Then what are you doing?" Tessa looked at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. "I'm making the biggest mistake of my life." She kissed him again, harder this time. Desperate. Kyle groaned against her mouth, his hands sliding down to her waist, pulling her as close as the car would allow. "My apartment," he murmured against her lips. "Come upstairs with me." Tessa pulled back, her eyes dark with want and fear. If we do this, everything changes." "Everything already changed the moment you walked into my office." She studied his face in the dim light. Whatever she saw there made her decision for her. Okay, she whispered. Kyle's penthouse apartment was everything Tessa had imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, art that probably cost more than her car. But she barely noticed any of it because Kyle was kissing her neck, his hands working the buttons of her blazer. "You're sure about this?" he asked, his lips against her throat. "No," she said honestly, "but I want you anyway." Kyle pulled back to look at her. "We can stop. Anytime you want to stop, we stop." Instead of answering, Tessa reached for the buttons of his shirt. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her eyes never left his. "I've never been with someone like you," she admitted. "Rich, important." She pushed his shirt off his shoulders. "I've never been with someone who could change my life just by wanting me." Kyle caught her hands. "Tessa, I need you to understand something. This isn't about your job or your situation or any of that. This is about you. Just you." Something cracked open in her chest. When was the last time someone had wanted her for just herself? "Show me," she whispered. Kyle lifted her up, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her toward his bedroom. Through the windows, the city lights twinkled like stars, but neither of them was looking at the view. They had each other. And for now, that was enough. Things are heating up. What do you think happens next? Drop your predictions in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. But outside, in the shadows of the parking garage, someone was watching. Someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. Someone who knew all about Tessa Williams and the real reason she'd come to San Francisco. 2 weeks later, Kyle's world collapsed in 60 seconds. He was in his office reviewing the Jakarta expansion deal. $60 million that would launch his app across Southeast Asia. When his business partner Marcus burst through the door. "We're done," Marcus said, his face white with panic. "The deal's dead. Everything's gone." Kyle looked up from his laptop. "What are you talking about?" Marcus threw a tablet on Kyle's desk. The screen showed an email chain, private conversations between Kyle and his investors, confidential financial projections, personal comments about potential partners. "Someone leaked our entire strategy," Marcus said. "The Jakarta group thinks we're playing games with them. They've pulled out completely." Kyle's blood went cold as he scrolled through the emails. These weren't just business communications. These were private messages, internal documents, files that only someone with high-level access could have obtained. "How is this possible?" Kyle asked. "That's what I want to know." Marcus pointed at the screen. "These emails came from your personal account. Someone with your login credentials sent them directly to Jakarta's CEO at 3 this morning." Kyle felt the room start to spin. "I didn't send these." "Then who did?" Kyle's mind raced through the possibilities. His assistant had been with him for 5 years. Marcus had access, but would never sabotage their own company. The IT team was locked down tight. Then he remembered. 2 nights ago, Tessa had stayed late to help him prepare for a client presentation. She'd used his computer to print documents, asked for his password to access certain files. "No," he whispered. "What?" Kyle looked up at Marcus, his heart breaking with every word. "Tessa Williams, the temp's secretary. She had access to my computer." Marcus stared at him. "The girl you've been sleeping with." "We're not. It's not." Kyle stopped. What was the point in lying now? "Yeah. Jesus Christ, Kaidi." Marcus ran his hands through his hair. "Please tell me you didn't give her your passwords." Kyle's silence was answer enough. "You've got to be kidding me." Marcus's voice rose. "You gave a temporary employee, someone we barely know, access to classified information because you wanted to get laid? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you let some gold-digging secretary destroy everything we built." Kyle felt something cold and dark settle in his chest. 2 weeks ago, he would have defended Tessa without question. But now, staring at the evidence on his screen, doubt crept in like poison. She needed money for her mother's medical bills. She'd been desperate, broke, willing to do anything for a job. And he'd given her access to everything. "Where is she now?" Marcus asked. Kyle checked his watch. She should be at her desk. They walked to the outer office together. Tessa's desk was empty. Her computer was off. Her purse was gone. "When did you last see her?" Marcus asked. "Yesterday afternoon. She said she had a doctor's appointment this morning." Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling security. Wait. Kyle held up a hand. Let me try to reach her first. He dialed Tessa's number. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. Her phone's off, Kyle said quietly. Or she's ignoring you. Marcus's voice was cold. Face it, Kyle. She played you, used you, and now she's gone. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? How did you handle it? Let us know in the comments. Hit that like button if you're shocked by this twist. Kyle stared at Tessa's empty desk, his heart breaking and his anger rising in equal measure. If she had betrayed him, she was about to learn that Kyle Forster didn't forgive easily. Kyle found Tessa at the hospital. She was sitting beside her mother's bed, holding the older woman's hand, completely unaware that her world was about to explode. Tessa. She looked up, and her face lit up with a smile that made Kyle's chest ache. Kyle, what are you doing here? I thought you had meetings all day. We need to talk. Now. Something in his tone made her smile fade. What's wrong? Not here. Kyle glanced at Mrs. Williams, who was sleeping peacefully. Outside, Tessa followed him to the hospital corridor, confusion written all over her face. The moment they were alone, Kyle turned on her. The Jakarta deal is dead, he said flatly. What? How? Someone leaked our private communications. Confidential files. Information that only someone with access to my personal computer could have obtained. Tessa's face went pale. Kyle, you don't think Your phone's been off all morning. You disappeared from the office without telling anyone where you were going. And yesterday, you were the last person to use my computer. I was printing client portfolios for your presentation. With my login information, my passwords, access to everything. Tessa stepped back like he'd slapped her. You think I stole from you? Did you? The question hung in the air between them. Kyle watched her face, searching for any sign of guilt, any tell that would confirm his worst fears. Instead, he saw hurt, deep, cutting hurt that made him want to take back every word. No, she whispered. I didn't steal from you. I would never. Then explain where you were this morning. Explain why your phone was off. Explain how those files got leaked. I was here. Tessa's voice rose. My mother had another episode. The doctors said she might not make it through the night. I turned off my phone because I was scared and heartbroken, and I didn't want to deal with work calls while she was dying. Kyle felt something crack in his chest. Tessa, no. She held up a hand, tears streaming down her face. You want to know what happened? Someone else has your information. Someone else betrayed you. But instead of trusting me, the woman you claim to care about, you immediately assumed I was the problem. The evidence is circumstantial, and you know it. Tessa wiped her eyes. But the fact that you came here ready to accuse me instead of asking if I was okay, that tells me everything I need to know about what you really think of me. Kyle reached for her, but she stepped away. Don't, she said. Don't touch me. Don't pretend you care. Don't act like what we had meant anything to you. It did mean something. It means everything. Then why didn't you trust me? Kyle opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he didn't have a good answer. Because somewhere deep down, he'd been waiting for this. Waiting for proof that someone like Tessa couldn't really want someone like him without an agenda. He started. Save it. Tessa's voice was cold now. I quit. Find yourself another temp secretary. One you can actually trust. She turned to walk away, and Kyle grabbed her arm. Tessa, wait. Please. She looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. Let me go, Kyle. The trust is broken. Do you think Kyle made the right choice confronting her? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe. But as she walked away, Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. That night, Kyle couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the scene of the hospital, the hurt in Tessa's eyes, the way she'd looked at him like he was a stranger. At 2 a.m, he gave up and drove back to the hospital. Mrs. Williams was awake, staring at the ceiling. She looked over when Kyle entered the room. She's not here, Mrs. Williams said quietly. I know. I came to see you. Mrs. Williams studied him with those sharp eyes. To apologize? Kyle pulled up a chair beside her bed. To understand. Your daughter says she didn't betray me. I want to believe her. But you don't. Kyle was quiet for a long moment. I've been burned before. By people I trusted. It's easier to assume the worst than to hope for the best. That's a sad way to live. It's a safe way to live. Mrs. Williams laughed, but there was no humor in it. Safe. Let me tell you something about safe, Mr. Forster. 27 years ago, I was married to a man who promised me safety, security, a good life for our future children. Kyle listened, sensing this story was important. His name was David Williams. He worked for a tech company in Atlanta, one of the first companies to develop artificial intelligence systems. Smart man, honest man, or so I thought. Mrs. Williams paused, her breathing labored. One day, he came home excited, said his company had developed something revolutionary. A system that could predict market trends, make investment decisions faster than any human could. They were going to be rich. Kyle felt something cold settle in his stomach. But then the company folded overnight. David lost everything. Not just his job, his reputation, his savings, his future. Turns out his business partner had been stealing their technology, selling it to competitors. What happened to him? He died 6 months later. Heart attack. The stress, the shame, the financial pressure, it killed him. Mrs. Williams looked directly at Kyle. I was 3 months pregnant with Tessa. Kyle's mind was racing. What was the name of the company? Forrester Tech Solutions. The room went silent except for the beeping of the machines. Kyle felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Your father's company, Mrs. Williams continued. Your father was David's business partner, the one who stole everything and left us with nothing. Kyle couldn't breathe. That's impossible. Is it? Why do you think Tessa came to San Francisco? Why do you think she applied for a job with your company specifically? You're saying she planned this? That she came here for revenge? Mrs. Williams was quiet for a long moment. I'm saying my daughter has been carrying the weight of her father's death her entire life. She grew up thinking your family destroyed ours. And when she found out about your company, about how successful you'd become using technology that should have been her father's, she wanted to destroy me. She wanted answers. She wanted to understand how your father could live with himself after what he did to ours. Kyle stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. So everything between us was a lie. The attraction, the connection, all of it. Was it? Mrs. Williams's voice was gentle now. Because from where I'm sitting, it looked real. On both sides. Plot twist. Everything changes now. What do you think really happened 27 years ago? Drop your theories in the comments and smash that like button. Kyle turned back to face her. If this is true, if my father really did steal from yours, then Tessa has every right to hate me. The question is, Mrs. Williams said quietly, what are you going to do about it? Kyle spent the next 3 days in his father's old study, going through boxes of documents he'd never bothered to examine before. His father had died 5 years ago, leaving behind a fortune and a legacy Kyle had never questioned. Richard Forster had been his hero, a brilliant entrepreneur who'd built an empire from nothing. But as Kyle dug deeper into the old files, a different picture emerged. Partnership agreements with David Williams. Technical specifications for AI systems Kyle didn't recognize. Financial records showing payments to consultants that had no names attached. And then he found it. A letter, handwritten in his father's careful script, dated just weeks before David Williams died. David, I know you're angry, but you have to understand. The technology wasn't viable under our original partnership structure. I did what I had to do to save the company. The buyout was legal. Your signature is on all the documents. This is business, not personal. Richard, Kyle read the letter 3 times, his hands shaking. There was another document attached, a buyout agreement that transferred all of David Williams' shares and intellectual property to Richard Forster for the sum of $50,000. David's signature was at the bottom, but it looked shaky, forced. Kyle's phone rang. Marcus, the Jakarta Group wants to meet, Marcus said without preamble. They're willing to give us one chance to explain what happened. I can't think about Jakarta right now. What do you mean you can't think about it? This is our entire future we're talking about. Kyle stared at his father's letter. Marcus, what do you know about the early days of the company? Before I took over? What does that have to do with anything? Just answer the question. Marcus sighed. Your father started the company in the late 90s. Had a partner initially, but the guy died before they could launch. Your father bought out his shares and built the empire solo. What? What was the partner's name? I don't know. William something. Kyle, why does this matter right now? Kyle closed his eyes. Because I think my father stole the company from his partner. And I think that partner's daughter just destroyed our Jakarta deal to get revenge. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a long moment. You're talking about Tessa, Marcus said finally. Her father was David Williams. He died 6 months after my father bought him out for pennies on the dollar. Kyle, she didn't leak our files to hurt the company, Marcus. She leaked them to hurt me. Because she thinks I'm just like him. Are you? The question hit Kyle like a physical blow. What? Are you just like your father? Because if this woman came here for revenge, if she seduced you as part of some elaborate plan to destroy you, then maybe you should let her finish the job. Maybe we deserve it. Kyle looked around his father's study. The awards, the photos, the monuments to a success built on someone else's stolen dreams. Maybe we do, he said quietly. But even as he said it, Kyle couldn't stop thinking about the way Tessa had looked at him in the hospital corridor. The hurt in her eyes hadn't been an act. The connection between them hadn't been fake. The family's secrets are coming out. Do you think Kyle's father was wrong? Is revenge ever justified? Tell us in the comments below. Which meant there was more to this story than either of them knew. Kyle found Tessa at her mother's bedside again. She looked up when he entered, her expression guarded. What do you want, Kyle? I know who you are, he said quietly. I know why you came to San Francisco. Tessa's face went very still. Do you? David Williams was your father. My father bought him out of their partnership for $50,000. 6 months later, your father was dead. Tessa stood up slowly, her hands clenched at her sides. So now you know, you came here for revenge. I came here for answers. Tessa's voice was steady, but Kyle could see the pain underneath. I grew up believing your father destroyed mine, that he stole everything we should have had. Do you know what it's like to watch your mother work 3 jobs because the man who was supposed to be your father's partner left you with nothing? Kyle felt something twist in his chest. Tessa, no, let me finish. She stepped closer to him. I came here planning to hate you. I was going to get close to you, learn everything I could about your company, find proof that your father was a thief. And then I was going to destroy you the same way he destroyed us. The words hung in the air between them. Kyle felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. But something changed. Tessa continued, her voice softer now. You weren't what I expected. You were kind to me. You cared about my mother. You made me feel. What? Love. The word came out as barely a whisper. For the first time in my life, someone looked at me and saw something worth loving. Kyle reached for her, but she stepped back. So no, Kyle, I didn't leak your files. I didn't betray you. Because somewhere along the way, revenge stopped mattering. You started mattering. Then who leaked the files? Tessa looked at him like he was missing something obvious. Think about it. Who else knew about my connection to your father? Who else would want to destroy both of us? Kyle's mind raced through the possibilities. Then it hit him. Your mother. Tessa nodded slowly. She's been planning this for 27 years. She raised me on stories about the evil Richard Forrester and his spoiled son. When she found out I was working for you, that we were involved, she decided to finish what she started. Kyle felt the pieces clicking into place. She had access to your laptop, your passwords. She could have used your credentials to access my systems. She's been watching us, Kyle, following us. She knew about the Jakarta deal because I told her about it. I was proud of the work we were doing together. Kyle sank into the chair beside Mrs. Williams' bed. The older woman was awake now, watching them with sharp, calculating eyes. Hello, Kyle, she said calmly. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. What? Kyle asked. If you wanted revenge, why involve your daughter? Why hurt her too? Mrs. Williams smiled, but it was cold. Because sometimes the best revenge is making someone destroy the thing they love most. The real villain is revealed. Were you shocked? What do you think happens next? Comment below and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for the explosive conclusion. Kyle looked at Tessa, seeing the betrayal and heartbreak in her eyes as she realized her mother had used her as a weapon. And he knew that whatever happened next, they were in this together now. The hospital room fell silent except for the steady beeping of machines. Tessa stared at her mother like she was looking at a stranger. "You used me," Tessa whispered. "You let me fall in love with him just so you could destroy us both." Mrs. Williams struggled to sit up higher in her bed. "I did what I had to do. Your father deserved justice." "My father is dead." Tessa's voice cracked. "He's been dead for 27 years. This isn't justice, it's murder." "Murder?" Mrs. Williams laughed bitterly. "That man's family killed your father just as surely as if they'd put a gun to his head. The stress, the shame, the financial ruin. It all started with Richard Forrester." Kyle stood up, his jaw tight. "My father made a business decision. Maybe it wasn't fair, but it was legal." "Legal." Mrs. Williams spat the word like it tasted bad. "You sound just like him. Your father said the same thing when David begged him not to take everything." "What exactly happened?" Tessa asked quietly. "I want to hear it all. No more lies." Mrs. Williams looked between them, her eyes calculating. "Your father and Richard were partners. Equal partners. They developed the AI technology together, worked 18-hour days, poured their souls into that company." She paused, breathing heavily. "But when the first big investor came around, Richard got greedy. He restructured the partnership agreement while David was in the hospital. I was having complications with my pregnancy. David signed the papers without reading them carefully because he trusted his best friend. Kyle felt sick. The buyout agreement, I found, was a trap," Mrs. Williams finished. "Richard used David's illness, my pregnancy, our desperation against us. He offered $50,000 for technology that would eventually be worth billions. But Dad could have refused to sign," Tessa said. "With what lawyer? What money? We were drowning in medical bills. Richard knew we had no choice." Mrs. Williams turned to Kyle. "Your father destroyed mine systematically, methodically. And then he built an empire on the bones of David's dreams." Kyle ran his hands through his hair. "So you decided to destroy me." "I decided to take back what was ours. The technology, the money, the success, it all should have been David's. Should have been yours, Tessa." Tessa shook her head. "I never wanted his money. I wanted a father. And I wanted justice." "No," Kyle said firmly. "You wanted revenge. And you were willing to sacrifice your own daughter to get it." Mrs. Williams' eyes flashed with anger. "Don't you dare lecture me about sacrifice. Your family took everything from us." "My family." Kyle stepped closer to the bed. "Not me. I was 7 years old when your husband died. I didn't know about any of this. I built my own company, made my own choices. With stolen money, stolen technology. Maybe, but that doesn't give you the right to destroy innocent people." Tessa moved between them. "Stop. Both of you, just stop." She looked at her mother with tears in her eyes. "Mama, what you did was wrong. You hurt Kyle. You hurt me. You hurt yourself. Dad wouldn't have wanted this. How do you know what your father would have wanted?" Mrs. Williams demanded. "Because I know what love looks like," Tessa said softly. "And this isn't it. Family secrets are tearing them apart." Do you think Mrs. Williams was justified? Comment your thoughts below and hit that like button. Kyle reached for Tessa's hand. This time, she didn't pull away. Outside the hospital room, Kyle and Tessa sat in silence on a bench in the hallway. The weight of everything they'd learned pressed down on them like a physical force. "I'm sorry," Tessa said finally. "For all of it. For lying to you. For letting her use me for—" "Don't." Kyle took her hand. "You don't have anything to apologize for. You were trying to find answers about your father. That's not wrong. But I hurt you. The company, the Jakarta deal. We can fix the Jakarta deal. Marcus is already working on damage control." Kyle turned to face her. "But I need to know something. When you came to San Francisco, when you applied for the job, was any of it real?" Tessa was quiet for a long moment. "At first? No. I came here planning to hate you. I practiced speeches in my mirror about how I was going to confront you, make you admit what your father did." Kyle's chest tightened. And then you offer me $1,500 a week and look genuinely happy when I accepted it." Tessa smiled sadly. "Rich men aren't supposed to care about poor girls being grateful." "You changed everything for me too," Kyle admitted. "I spent my whole life thinking I had to be perfect, had to be worthy of my father's legacy. But with you, I could just be myself. Even when myself was a liar." You weren't lying about the important things. The way you cared for your mother, your strength, your kindness, that was all real. Tessa leaned against his shoulder. What happens now? My mother destroyed your business deal to get revenge on your dead father. Your family stole technology from my dead father. Well, like some messed up Romeo and Juliet story. Kyle laughed despite everything. Romeo and Juliet died at the end. Maybe we will too. Not if I have anything to say about it. Kyle stood up, pulling her with him. Come on, where are we going? To fix this mess. They walked back into Mrs. Williams' room. She looked up at them with defiant eyes. Gonna say goodbye, she asked. Actually, Kyle said, I came to make you an offer. Mrs. Williams raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. The technology my father stole from yours, I want to give it back. Not the money, not the company, but recognition. I want to rename our AI division after David Williams. I want his name on patents, on buildings, on everything. Kyle, Tessa started. And Kyle continued, I want to establish a scholarship program for students from low-income families who want to study technology. The David Williams Memorial Scholarship. Mrs. Williams stared at him. What? Because you're right. What my father did was wrong. I can't change the past, but I can try to make the future better. And in return, you stop trying to destroy me. You let your daughter be happy. And you help me rebuild what you tore down. Mrs. Williams looked between Kyle and Tessa, something shifting in her expression. You really love her, she said quietly. More than anything. Kyle's making a huge gesture. Do you think it's enough? What would you do in this situation? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Mrs. Williams closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there were tears. David would have liked you, she whispered. 3 days later, Kyle stood in his office conference room, facing the Jakarta Investment Group via video call. Marcus sat beside him, while Tessa sat in the back corner, taking notes. Gentlemen, Kyle began, I owe you an explanation and an apology. Mr. Tanaka, the lead investor, leaned forward on screen. We're listening, Mr. Forrester. The leaked emails you received were the result of a personal attack on my company. Someone with a grudge against my family used those communications to try to sabotage our partnership. And have you identified this person? Kyle glanced back at Tessa. They'd agreed on this story together. Yes, the individual has been dealt with, and we've implemented new security protocols to ensure this never happens again. That's all well and good, Mr. Tanaka said, but trust has been broken. How do we know you won't share our private communications with competitors? Because, Kyle said, I'm prepared to put my money where my mouth is. I'll personally guarantee the success of our Jakarta expansion. If we don't meet our projected targets within the first year, I'll buy back your investment at 120% of your initial contribution. The investors exchanged glances. This was a huge risk. Kyle will be personally liable for over $70 million if the expansion failed. That's generous, Mr. Tanaka said. But why would you take such a risk? Kyle looked directly into the camera. Because this company isn't just about profit. It's about connecting people, helping communities, building something that matters. And I believe our partnership can change healthcare staffing across Southeast Asia. After an hour of negotiation, the Jakarta group agreed to move forward. The deal was back on. When the call ended, Marcus let out a long breath. That was either brilliant or insane. Maybe both, Kyle said. Tessa approached them, her notebook in hand. The contracts are ready for review. I've also drafted the press release about the David Williams Memorial Scholarship. Kyle studied her. In the 3 days since the hospital confrontation, she'd thrown herself into helping rebuild what her mother had torn down. She worked 18-hour days, contacted every client personally to reassure them, and somehow managed to make Kyle's scattered notes into coherent presentations. Tessa, he said, can I talk to you privately? Marcus took the hint and left. When they were alone, Kyle moved closer to her. You don't have to keep punishing yourself, he said softly. What happened wasn't your fault, wasn't it? Tessa's voice was tired. I came here with lies, Kyle. Everything started with lies and ended with truth. Kyle cupped her face in his hands. I love you. Not the temp secretary, not the woman seeking answers about her father. I love you. Tessa Williams. exactly as you are. Tears filled her eyes. I love you too. But how do we move forward? How do we build something real on a foundation of deception? The same way people have been doing it for centuries. One honest day at a time. Kyle kissed her then, soft and gentle and full of promise. When they broke apart, Tessa smiled for the first time in days. Love is conquering the lies. Are you rooting for them? Let us know in the comments and smash that subscribe button for the finale. One honest day at a time, she repeated. I like the sound of that. 6 months later, Kyle stood at the podium in the newly renamed David Williams Technology Center, looking out at a crowd of journalists, investors, and scholarship recipients. Today marks not just the launch of our Southeast Asian expansion, he said, but the beginning of a new chapter in corporate responsibility. The David Williams Memorial Scholarship has already provided full college funding to 50 students from underserved communities. In the front row, Tessa sat beside her mother. Mrs. Williams was in a wheelchair now. Her health had declined rapidly after the kidney transplant Kyle had secretly funded. But she was alive, and for the first time in months, she was smiling. We can't change the past, Kyle continued, but we can learn from it. We can choose to build bridges instead of walls, to create opportunities instead of taking them away. After the ceremony, Kyle found Tessa on the building's rooftop garden. She was wearing a simple blue dress that made her look radiant in the evening light. How does it feel? She asked, slipping her arms around his waist. Like I'm finally living up to something, Kyle said. Your father will be proud of what we've built here. He would. Tessa looked out over the city. My mother told me something yesterday. She said she spent so many years focused on what we lost. She forgot to see what we still had. And what's that? Each other. Hope. The chance to make things better. Kyle turned her to face him. Speaking of making things better, he dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from his jacket pocket. Tessa's hands flew to her mouth. Kyle, I know we started with lies, he said, opening the box to reveal a simple diamond ring. But I want to spend the rest of my life telling you the truth. The truth is that you make me a better man. The truth is that I can't imagine my future without you in it. The truth is that I love you more than I ever thought possible. Tears streamed down Tessa's face. The truth is, she said, I've been waiting my whole life for someone to love me the way you do. Is that a yes? That's a hell yes. Kyle slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her. Below them, the city sparkled with possibility. Your mother's going to be thrilled, Kyle said against her lips. She's already planning the wedding. Apparently, she has very strong opinions about flowers. Kyle laughed. Of course she does. Kyle. Tessa's voice grew serious. Thank you for forgiving her, for forgiving me, for turning something ugly into something beautiful. Thank you for showing me that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. They stood together as the sun set over San Francisco, two people who had found love in the ruins of old hatred, who had chosen to build instead of destroy. They're engaged. Are you crying happy tears? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. And in the distance, Mrs. Williams watched from her hospital window, finally at peace. 1 year later, Tessa Forster stood in the kitchen of their new home, watching her husband make breakfast. Kyle moved around the kitchen with the same precision he brought to boardroom negotiations. But now there was lightness in his movements, joy in his face. The Jakarta numbers came in, he said, sliding a plate of eggs in front of her. We're up 30% from our projections. That's amazing. Tessa kissed his cheek. Dad'll be proud. It had taken time, but she'd started calling David Williams Dad instead of my father. Kyle had encouraged it, helping her build a relationship with the memory of a man she'd never really known. Speaking of proud, Kyle said, Your mother called. She wants to know if we're coming to dinner Sunday. Tessa smiled. Mrs. Williams had moved into a senior living facility near their house. Her health was stable, and she spent her days volunteering with the scholarship program, helping disadvantaged students navigate college applications. Did you tell her we have news? Kyle's eyes lit up. I thought we'd tell her together. Tessa placed her hand on her still flat stomach. They'd found out yesterday. She was 6 weeks pregnant. After everything they'd been through, The idea of creating new life together felt like a miracle. "What do you think he'll be like?" Kyle asked, covering her hand with his. Tessa corrected, "will be strong and smart and won't take any nonsense from anybody. Just like her mother and her father." Kyle pulled her close. "I never thought I'd have this. A family, a real family." "You always had it," Tessa said softly. "You just had to learn to trust it." The doorbell rang. Through the window, they could see Marcus standing on their front porch with a bottle of champagne and a huge grin. "Did you tell him?" Tessa asked. "I may have mentioned we had something to celebrate." They opened the door to find not just Marcus, but Mrs. Williams in her wheelchair, pushed by her nurse, and several of the scholarship recipients they'd grown close to over the past year. "Surprise!" Marcus shouted. "We're here for the announcement." Tessa looked at Kyle, who shrugged innocently. "I may have invited a few people over." "A few people? Our family," Kyle said simply, and looking around at the faces surrounding them. Marcus, who'd become like a brother. Mrs. Williams, who'd found peace and forgiveness. The students whose lives they'd helped change. Tessa realized he was right. They built something beautiful from the ashes of old pain. Not just a company or a marriage, but a real family bound together by choice rather than blood, by love rather than obligation. "So," Mrs. Williams demanded, "are you going to keep us in suspense all day?" Tessa and Kyle exchanged a look. Then, together, they shared their news with the people who mattered most. And that's our story. Love conquered all, families were healed, and new life is beginning. What was your favorite moment? Comment below, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe for more amazing stories. Thanks for being part of our family. The inheritance of deception had become a legacy of love.